Okay, everybody. So I'm going to be focusing on showing you how to open your data and do your analysis. Okay, so the first thing you need to do is download this file. This is a data file for SPSS. I've gone ahead and gotten most of it ready, prepared most of it for your analysis. This is mostly work I have students do most of the time, but we don't have too much time. I just prepared most of it. You're still gonna have to do some work with the file, but I'll review that right now. So the first thing you want to do is go to My CSUN Software. So keep in mind that by this point, you should have installed Citrix. There's another video for that. Make sure you follow that. So I'm gonna go to My CSUN Software. I'm going to Google it because most of you are going to go here first, then click on this, and then you click on login to My CSUN Software and login, right? My login is saved. I'm just going to do that. And it's going to send me here because I've already done this. I've already set this up. For some of you, if you do this first, it's going to ask you to install Citrix. Do not install Citrix from that link, from CSUN. It gives you the wrong link. It gives you Citrix Receiver, which looks exactly like this. So if you installed it, you'll think you have the same thing I do, but you won't. It should be Citrix Workspace. So, double check, click on this, make sure you have Citrix Workspace. If you installed the wrong version, you have to install that same file that you used to install Citrix Receiver, and then that also has an option to uninstall Citrix Receiver, and then you install Citrix Workspace. But go back to that video, check that out. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and download this file. Once that's downloaded, you can open it. Now it takes a while for this to open. This is actually pretty fast compared to other times. It depends on your internet connection. It depends on the other side of things. Actually, no, it's going to take a while. So just keep this in mind. This is normal. You get a black screen for a while. My icon looks like it crashed or it's frozen. It's not. It's going to take a while for this to open up. So we wait and we wait. There you go. I spoke too soon. So as you can see, it takes a while. You do not want to do this last minute. Okay, read and write. You want to make sure you click on this. It allows SPSS to save and open files on your computer. You can see all these files that I've previously opened. You're not going to have that. You're only going to have this icon down here. Let me go ahead and double click that. And notice that sometimes you'll have a delay. That's because it's based on your internet connection. So you might have to wait a while sometimes. So here's a file on my desktop. But you know what? Actually, I'm there because I previously went there. I want you to click here. Make sure you're under this PC. Make sure you go to local disk H, and I'll have your computer name here. Maybe I'll just say MacBook Pro. Maybe you give it a name. If you're on Windows, make sure you follow the directions to get there. I have a handout for that. It might be similar, but either way you'll know, because if you don't see the file, there's some issue. So click on local disk H. Go to, where is it? Desktop. Open. And here's the file. Now it's going to take a while to open. Okay, here's my data file. It looks kind of funky. Just keep in mind you have two different views in your data file. One of them, if you look down here, data view looks like Excel. If you look through this, you'll see it looks a lot like Excel. And one thing I just noticed now, I can't scroll to the left and right like I normally do on my computer. So using the touchpad, instead I have to click here and move left and right. Normally that would work. I think it's just because we're using Citrix. So yeah, I would use these to navigate instead of scrolling. Well, scrolling up and down seems to work. It's just left and right that seems not to work. And those question marks you just saw, they're no issue. It just means it's loading the information. For some reason, it's not showing it, but it's still there. Okay, so you have all the data here. And let me take you all the way to the end. At the very end, I have most of your IVs here, right? Here you have growth and fixed. Here you have sex coded, which many of you call gender. So coded means I've transformed it into a numerical value. Let me show you. So you see how I have this clicked in? If I click it off, you'll see you only have numbers here. So if you only see numbers here, click it and I'll show you what those numbers actually mean. So I had to take the data we got from our participants and I turned it into these numbers. Then I went into variable view, and pay attention because you're going to have to do this for one variable. And let's look at sex coded. So keep in mind, it's the same variables. Here you have sex coded, but when you go to variable view, it gives you different data. It looks differently, right? So here you have sex coded. Under values, let me click on that again. When you click on this icon, you can assign values to each number. So you can tell SPSS 0 is male, 1 is female. So it's just displaying it that way as 0.00, same thing as 0. When you type 0 and press enter here, it'll add it that way. So actually, let me just remove it and just show you. 1 male, add. It shows it as 0.00. No issue. Okay, so I did that for all your IVs except ethnicity. You're going to see why. But I wanted to make sure I showed you that because for ethnicity, you're going to have to do this on your own. So first things first, let's go over the data you have here. You could ignore this. This is just a date and time when people took the survey. You could ignore that. Now here you have all the responses for the different scales. So everything before this has to do with current assistance. I calculated a new variable, a new value based on all these responses to give us one score for current assistance. So if that's your DV, this is what you're going to use for your analysis. Here's respect for family. So all these questions before here, but after this. Whoops, I went ahead too much. Relate to respect for family. But now we have it combined in one score, right? So you'll just use that one score. You're not going to use all the questions. We asked participants for all those questions to get a score, a single score for that DV. Here's future support. So expected future support of family. And here you have harassment, right? Harassment score. Now, the math one was the most difficult to do because other ones I just had to average. For this one, the math score, you can see that here. This is your total math score of how many they calculated correctly. So for each participant, and keep in mind, we have 700 participants. That's awesome. That's, that's just really good because we're going to see some findings hopefully in some of your analyses. And if there is a difference. But okay, I had to go through each participant and each question and check if they got it correct, and then total up how many they got correct for 700 people. So I really don't want to hear complaints about, but it's going to take so long to change ethnicity to a number. You're going to see what I'm talking about in a second. Yes, it's going to take a while, but it's the only one you have to do. Maybe two, if ethnicity was one of your variables, or if you're comparing LGBTQ to cis identified individuals. So let's go ahead here and let me show you what I mean. Okay, so here you have the questions related to ethnicity, race, nationality, right? For gender, that's good to go. You see over here, sex coded. That's already in a number format. I had to change that from this format because SPSS can't do anything with variables you entered in text. So I had to go through this and change them into numbers. So that's done. But ethnicity, that is not good to go. Let's see, where is ethnicity? Okay, so you see ethnicity coded, that's blank. So I do want you to go through all the participants and code the participants for their ethnicity. Now, coding simply means that you assign a number value per ethnic group. So you have to find a way to group them. Now, here we do have one way. That's based on the census. But the thing is, with this approach, you are going to miss people of different ethnicities that were not included as options. So I'm going to let you decide. But you have to go through all the participants and think of all the groups you're going to use and think of a number value for each group. So let me just pull up a new sheet. So maybe for black, I'll do 1. Next, I'll do 2. Asian, I'll do 3. White, I'll do 4. Red, I'll do 5. Mixed, I'll do 6. And so on, right? I'm fine with you using larger categories. It's not ideal because these larger categories don't capture everybody's background. But just to simplify things, I'm fine with you doing that. Now, why would you do this if this is not your IV? Well, actually, if this is one of your IVs, hold on. I'm actually reviewing this because you're going to have to include this in your method section for your presentation. So even if you don't have this as an IV, I do want you to tell me what percentage or how many of your participants were Black, Latinx, Asian, right, and so on. I want you to tell me the ethnic breakdown of your participants, and these are all your participants. So just to be clear, all 700 are your participants. We're combining our effort to get this massive sample. And you're gonna have to go ahead and go through your list and use your numbering system and assign those numbers. What was Asian? I think it was 3. Yeah, 3, 3, 1, 2, 4. No, 2, 2, 2, 1, 1, 1, 1, 2. You're gonna get some that responded with the other option. Based on your categories, think about where they would best fit. You see that this person said Latin descent. That makes it easy for me. But if you were, actually, now I'm not sure, because then I had these other categories I asked you to include just to get a better idea of where to categorize them, right? So if you weren't sure based on the responses earlier, you can go and look at these other responses and figure that out. Here they said Latin descent. I'm thinking Latino, right? Latinx, but that's not what this person meant. They meant like the Latin language, right? Latin languages. So Central Mediterranean, aka Sicilian, so Italian. So you'll have to make that call. So okay, so that's not going to be Latinx. Is that going to be white? Is that going to be some other category? Do you have a category for Western European, right? Would that count as Western European? You decide based on your category. So part of the process is creating your own categories. The other part is categorizing people. And keep in mind, just because I've created these categories, it doesn't mean I can't add, right? So let's say I'm not sure where to include them right now. So I don't know, maybe I do Western European. Maybe I change white to white American, right? That's up to you. So you can use whatever categories you want. And then after you've done that, so you've gone through all of these, also keep in mind, I'm fine with you all splitting the work. So if you all want to email each other and say, hey, do you want to do 1 through 200? I'll do 201 through 400, and then we could get 2 other people to do the rest. That's fine with me. But let's see, where are we? You want to make sure you tell SPSS what those numbers mean. You have it written down on paper or somewhere like I do here. But you need to tell SPSS what those numbers mean, right? So I actually have that earlier. It's here. And you want to go under values where it says none, the first none. Click on it. Click on these 3 dots. And then go through the process of telling SPSS what these numbers mean. First the value, then the label, then add. 2 Latinx, add. 3 Asian, add. 4 I believe was white, add. And so on. You would do all of them, right? So if you have 10 categories, do all 10 categories. Okay. Then I go to data view, and you'll see here, actually, let's say I had more numbers. Okay, so Middle Eastern, for example. Maybe Middle Eastern would be a better term than Arabic. Well, I don't know, your choice, right? Because they mean different things. But let's say this was like I already used 5. Did I use 5? Let's go 6. Whoops. Let me turn this off. Okay, so if you haven't told SPSS what a number value means, like I haven't with 6, it's just going to show you that number. It's not going to change to text. So go through your data afterwards, see if you see any numbers. When you click this on, that means you haven't finished coding everything. You haven't told SPSS what that number means, or maybe you think you entered a 6 and you entered an 8, right? So you make sure to check your data. Now, for the people who did ethnicity as an IV, now what I want you to do, let me see if I can make this bigger. So I created one variable here and one here, 2 more that aren't filled out. So this is only for people who have to do ethnicity, who chose to do ethnicity as an IV, or who chose a different who chose gender as an IV, but not gender in terms of male, female. So if you chose ethnicity as an IV, I want you to go through all the participants. So you ideally want a larger screen, or you could even move this closer. So I'm moving the ethnicity IV closer to the ethnicity responses. So let me turn this back on. Now it's next to all the ethnicity responses. And for example, if you're comparing Armenian and white, go through all these. Let's see. Okay, here you have, and choose a number value. You do have to choose a number value. Let's say I choose 1 for white and 2 for Armenian. And for those of you who are doing this is probably not the best column to look at, just because they're choosing the options that they would find on a census, and you generally don't find Armenian on a census. I would suggest looking at these two, this one and this one, right? Ethnicity, how do you identify ethnically, and nationality. And you would go through these and only include numbers for participants of the ethnicities you're comparing. So for example, if I'm looking at Armenian and white, none of these would have numbers here. All these ones I'm highlighting right now. I would keep going, right, until I find another white participant. Here we go. Or another Armenian participant. Kind of look at this one though. Isn't that interesting? This person identifies as white. They're from Palestine and Lebanon. So that's how they choose to identify. So that's, you know, how you would categorize them. But if for some reason you're thinking about comparing Arabic to white American, take a look at these two earlier. Say, okay, based on that, I would categorize them as Arabic instead of white. But anyways, you're gonna have to go through all of these, and here's a white participant, and look through them and label them based on these two categories, and keeping in mind that we're leaving everything else blank. Now in this process, if you realize, wait, nobody's saying Armenian, wait, nobody's saying Filipino, you know, I wanted to look at Filipino participants, but we only have 10 out of the 700. In that case, I would say broaden your categories. So for example, if I'm thinking white compared to Armenian, but here as I'm going through it, I'm seeing white. I actually missed two here, 2 white participants. I would still check to the left to see, yeah, white American. This one, oh, Arabic, right? So I would choose where I want to categorize that person. But if you're going through this and you see that there's not many Armenian participants, then I would use a larger category. In that case, you'd have to decide on your own, right? Do you go for Arabic? Do you do Middle Eastern? Armenian is not middle, right? So you have to decide, right? If you have an idea on how to do it, but you want to check with me, feel free to check with me. But most likely I'm going to be okay with you expanding your categories. But yeah, feel free to check. So you have to go through all of these and only label the 2 ethnicities you're comparing for this one, for the ethnicity IV. For ethnicity coded, this applies to everyone. You need to go through ethnicity coded and code all participants and create your own categories. I'm going to say that one more time. Everybody needs to do this. Ethnicity coded. Everybody. Doesn't matter your project. Ethnicity IV, this you need to do if your IV is ethnicity, and only code those that fit into your categories. And you should only have 2 ethnicities you're comparing. Don't use this as your IV if you're using ethnicity. Use this, and you should only have 2 numbers, 1 and 2, or 0 and 1. That's what I would use. Okay, so before we actually run some analyses, I do want to point out that for this last one, gender IV, I have that one for the people who said they wanted to compare LGBTQ to cis male, cis female, cisgendered individuals. Most people chose to do male compared to female, but some people did want to do this other comparison, which is great. But you're going to have to do kind of the same thing as ethnicity. You're going to have to choose 2 values, let's say 1 and 0. And I'm actually not going to go through all the participants, but let's say you go through this first participant. They say I'm male, heterosexual, right? Okay, let's say 2 was your cis category, right? So this means that the person identifies with the sex they were born, identified at birth. Don't worry about it if this is not your focus, right? But you would go, well, maybe you should worry about it. Not worry about it, but think about it. So here you have 2 for cis. Let's say, yeah, that. And here you have somebody who identifies as a queer female. Here you have somebody who identifies as a gender fluid male. Here you have somebody who identifies as, I don't know, something that some other identity that doesn't fit within the cis category. So you would go through all of them and categorize all participants based on how they fit into your 2 comparison groups. After you've done this, again, you have to do this step. You go into gender, you go into the variable view, go to gender IV, go under values, and then tell SPSS what the numbers mean. Wait, no, I think I had removed 2. What's this? 1, maybe LGBTQ. But you could, use your own categories, non-cis. And then when you go back here, you should see the labels in this way. Okay, now I'm going to show you 2 more things. Okay, I'm going to show you, actually, you know what, I'm going to stop the video here and just follow up on the next video in terms of how to do the analysis. Okay, that way we can separate out the videos.